Today's True Scary Story has a huge trigger warning. It deals with things that rhyme with schmurder and schmuicide. It is very sad and very scary. Make sure you stay till the end of the story because there is a twist at the end of the story. Also, if you want to send me your true scary story, the email is in my bio. Okay, let's get started. Today's submitter's name is Celestia. Celestia did say that I could tag her, so I'm going to drop her tag in the description and she will be looking at all of the comments. May of 2016, her and her family moved into a home. At first, this home was incredibly lovely. They absolutely loved it. But after a while, they would find out that this home would be one of the worst things that had ever happened to them. I have to give you a little bit of information about the house because it's important to the story. So the house was green and white. It had a driveway that was gravel, even though they lived on a busy road that was pavement. The driveway led to the back of the house with a nice detached garage. Now the garage is very important to the story, so remember it. The yard was also off to the side and it was a decent sized yard. September 17th of 2016, Celestia, her mom, and her sister made an absolutely horrible discovery. Her stepdad had unalived himself by Celestia was 9 at the time. She had a little brother that was 6 years old. Her sister was 8 years old and her mom was 28. Her stepfather unfortunately passed away at the age of 29. Now Celestia took this very hard, and so did the rest of her family, because he was a very beloved person of their family. Not only that, but he was also an incredibly happy person, it seemed. So when this happened, everybody was in total shock and devastation. He did leave a letter behind, but the letter just described why he did it and then said sorry and then goodbye. Now it's important to note that her stepfather did this in the garage, and before he did this, he spent a lot of time in the garage. He liked being in there. The only problem with this is that sometimes when he would come out of the garage, he would become violent, and this was very out of character for him. So her mother didn't like the garage. She said it had bad juju. She didn't like going in there. She never went in there alone, and the garage just didn't seem like a happy place to her, and especially after he had unalived himself, this was a place that she never wanted to go into again. Now it's also important to note that her mother had psychic abilities, meaning that she could hear, feel, see, and talk to spirits. She could also feel how the spirits were feeling. So a couple months before this happened, they had a barbecue in their backyard at their house, and a bunch of neighbors came over, and one of the neighbors was a really good friend of her stepfather. And this neighbor she described as being really buff, strong, and like nothing scared this guy. So while this man was at their house, her stepdad asked him to do him a favor. He said, "Can you please run in the garage and grab something for me?" And the neighbor said, "Yeah, of course, I'll go in the garage and grab it for you." So he runs, he goes into the garage, and not even a minute later, he comes rushing out of the garage. He is absolutely hysterically crying, and he won't speak. He will not tell anybody what he saw or heard in the garage. He just says he's never going back there again. He goes home, and even after a few more visits of him coming over to see her stepfather when he would come to the house, he absolutely refused to go to the garage. Whatever he saw was so terrifying that it is unknown to this day what he saw. Fast forward to a couple months later, and her mom is actually in the garage and she is packing up boxes, so she has to be in the garage at this point. She has what you use to cut boxes in her hand, a box cutter. So she is doing this when all of a sudden she goes into this trance-like state, and she has this vision of, by the way, this is very graphic, she has this vision of her taking the box cutter and cutting off a piece of her and then hanging it on a clothesline. This is what she is thinking in her head to do to herself. This only lasts for a couple seconds. She immediately realizes what's happening. She comes out of the trance and she is like, okay, we are done here. I'm getting out of here. She runs out of the garage and she immediately contacts a paranormal investigative team on FB. The paranormal team was very responsive. They actually reacted immediately and they came to the house. As soon as they got there, she told them everything that had been happening, down to her stepdad unaliving himself, all the paranormal experience she had had, and her experience in the garage. Now, the paranormal team took this very seriously because of the children that were in the house. The leader of the paranormal groups decides that he wants to go inside of the house alone, and he wants to kind of try to get answers out of this spirit. I don't know really what he was thinking, but he goes inside the garage. Her mother is praying for him. His team is praying for him, and he is praying for himself before he goes into the garage. He goes in, and immediately he realizes that something is wrong. He realizes that there is a dark entity in there, and he wants to know how powerful it is. So he literally says out loud, "Show me how powerful you really are," which is crazy to me, by the way. And so the entity does. The entity throws him to the ground, and he falls on his hands and knees in the garage. I guess the paranormal investigator at this point decides that he's going to take back what he said. He's had enough, and he says, "Stop. I command you in the name of Jesus to stop right now." This actually works, and the entity stops doing what it's doing. He then goes outside and he tells her mom that she is never to go in the garage alone, that it is incredibly dangerous, and no one is to go in there alone. Her mom takes this very seriously. So the paranormal investigators are kind of like, we want to know why this is happening inside of your house. So they do a little digging, and what they find out is absolutely terrifying. They find out that the house is built in the early 1900s, and in 1920, the third owners of the house experienced something horrific. Apparently, there was a husband, a wife, and a son that lived in the house, and the husband started experiencing some really terrifying visions. He kept having visions of people or someone telling him that he needed to unalive his family, and he was having this experience a lot. Well, I guess these visions were getting to him because one day he just snaps and he does the unspeakable, and his wife and his son, and then he takes his own life. Now, it was confirmed that the husband of this family spent a lot of time in the garage. He really liked the garage, kind of the same as her stepfather. The only difference is her stepfather may have been experiencing some things like this, they don't know, but he didn't do this to his family, he did this to himself instead. And this man took his life and his family's life. So there is something dark about that garage, and they believe that that entity lives in that garage and still lives there to this day. And they found out who the entity is. The entity is under the command of one of the 7 princes of hell. Now, she says that she does not recommend that you look up this name, but it does start with a B, and she said that this particular demon, or whatever it is absolutely ruthless. So a week after the investigation, they actually were already in the process of moving because of everything that had happened, and her mom brought her aunt over to her house in order to help her kind of pack some of the rest of the stuff up in the garage. Now, there was an attic in the garage, and in the attic, to get to the attic, there was stairs, and her aunt went over to the stairs because she was going to go up the stairs to go up in the attic to grab the rest of their stuff. She goes to the stairs, she gets up the stairs, and she stops at the top of the stairs and is just staring into the attic. The dark entity was literally standing right in front of her aunt, and she saw what it looked like. Now, when I emailed her back and asked her what it looked like, because she didn't give me a description in the first place, she said that her mom didn't really want to go into detail about what it looked like because she didn't want to bring that entity back into their lives. But they did tell me that it was dark, very dark, it had red eyes, and it had the most sinister smile. This terrified her aunt to her core. She had nightmares for months, and she even started having thoughts of schmooicide. Now, her mother said that she never had thoughts of schmooicide, but still, this was absolutely terrifying for this poor family, and thank God they got out of there. And thank the Lord it did not follow them. Now, what do you guys think of this story? What do you think happened to her stepdad? What do you think happened to the other man who unalived his family? Why do you think these things occurred? Do you think the entity was there to begin with, or do you think it was manifested some way? Like I said, she will be tagged and she will be reading the comments, and I'm sure she will respond to your comments, so drop any of the questions and comments that you have in the comment section for her. My name is Kaisa, and I give true scary stories every single night that people have submitted to me through email, and I recount them on here. So if you would like me to tell your true scary story, the email is in my bio, and if you like that type of stuff, then please hit that follow button, leave a comment, and like for support. Otherwise, you guys are the absolute best. You mean everything to me. Truly, all of your comments are so sweet, most all of them, but I really truly appreciate you guys so much. I love you. And today's video is brought to you by Snuggie, a blanket with arms, which I absolutely love this thing. It has pockets on each side, and when you walk around with it, you don't have to worry about it falling off and just being super annoying. It is so comfortable. It's made of fleece. It's something that I snuggle in all the time and listen to my own scary stories. Well, not my own, but other people's. And I just think it's perfect for this. So it's one of my favorite things. So I'm going to drop the link for you guys right there. And other than that, I just need you to do one thing for me. And what is that? Have a spooky night. Love you guys. See you in the next one.